Hello and welcome back to the Who podcast. This month I am joined by a returning guest. And no, it's not Will. We have the brilliant, the Doctor Who guide, who is still growing their knowledge and connection with other Doctor Who fans, and is fresh from a recent trip to the UK.
Hello.
Hello, Alex.
Hi.
Hi. Welcome back. It's been a while. We were just saying just before that it's been about 2 years since you last appeared,
Yes.
or 3 years, in fact. And I'm going to get into sort of the details of what's happened in those 2 years. But the episodes that we did before, I think we were both saying that we were very happy with how those interviews turned out, weren't we? That we thought worked out.
Absolutely. Yeah,
They
thank you
were.
for having me. Thank you for having me back.
So before I start asking questions, for those that weren't listening last time, what sort of things do you do in terms of Doctor Who? Describe yourself, I guess.
Yeah, so the Doctor Who Guide, as you said, is all about helping Doctor Who fans grow their knowledge collection and connection. And so my videos on the Doctor Who Guide are generally often focused on Doctor Who merchandise. So I do monthly Doctor Who merchandise, previews of everything that's coming out. I do a lot of unboxing videos and try and keep up with the latest DVDs and Blu-rays are my focus. So if you enjoy collecting those, there's lots of videos about that. And I've recently been doing YouTube Shorts as well, just making news videos and stuff about Doctor Who merchandise. So that's what you can find over on my channel. And I'm currently editing the vlog that I took during my 3-week trip to the
Oh,
UK. So that'll be on the channel
brilliant.
soon as well. Hopefully. It's like editing a movie, so it's taking its sweet time, but
All that
I'm really
footage,
excited.
yeah.
Oh,
All
yes.
those.
So much footage.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I tried to do a day once. I went to Sheffield and to do sort of like Series 11 filming locations, and with all the footage for essentially what was 4 hours, still took me a good week to cut down into an actual
Right?
coherent video as well. That's the tricky thing. You
Yes.
can jump around like an absolute lunatic, but it has to make sense. Um,
Right?
I think your channel is up there with one of the sort of the first channels to be established in terms of YouTube. I know that I don't really like calling it YouTube, but it's sort of the best term for what it is. Um, I think last time you were here, it said it was about 5 years. I mean, what are we up to now? About 6 or 7?
Seven, just over 7 years. It was August of 2016 when I started the channel, and I've been posting weekly ever since.
I mean, you must have missed some weeks. You must have missed
Yes,
a couple of
absolutely.
videos.
But I have missed a couple for sure. But I'd say about 90% of the weeks I made it. And I've certainly made up for it as post some weeks I post more than once. So yeah, over 700 videos on the channel now, which is
It's a,
quite
it's a it's a huge archive of stuff as well, isn't it? Because
it is.
I think I think we were saying last time that you know with that sort of content, it's very easy to put on essentially a playlist of all of your videos and watch the unboxings from years ago. Because occasionally they sort of rise up in the subscription feed or on the home feed on YouTube, and you
Hmm.
can see them there. And I go, oh yeah, have I seen that one? I think I've seen that one, and then I end up watching it again. And then you go through and go, so how much of the collection did he have at this point? And then is everything where it should be, and stuff
Right.
like that. So I have some sort of introduction questions. Now, you were sort of pre my organisation with these interviews because initially they were very different format. So Will and I, my sort of usual co-host, constructed a couple of questions that would ask to get to know you a little bit better and ask questions of yourself. So the question I posed to you before, not long before, normally I give people a lot more time, to be honest, is what is your favourite moment in media? We've had some weird, not weird. We've had some interesting decisions over the last couple of months with various things. So, Alex, what have you got for us today?
I was thinking about this question. It
Hmm.
was definitely one that I thought, oh gosh, I could spend a lot more time thinking about this. But um, the one that came to mind is from kind of my childhood. It the film is the 2000 animated film of the Tigger movie. It's the Winnie the Pooh film, animated Tigger
Oh
movie,
right.
and he goes on this quest to find his family of Tiggers like him, and it is a really, it's a beautiful movie. It's, not a dry eye in the house by the end of the film.
Mm,
It's a lot about, found family, and the moment that I think about is actually the end credits song by Kenny Loggins, and it's acoustic guitar, maybe some piano, and the words are just, I mean, the song starts out with the lyrics of sunny days and starry nights and lazy afternoons. You're counting castles in the clouds and humming little tunes. But somehow, right before your eyes, the summer fades away. Everything is different and everything has changed. If you feel lost and on your own and far from home, you're never alone. Just think of your friends, the ones who care. They all will be waiting there with love to share, and your heart will lead you home. And like, this is a song that, like, it has taken on more and more
mm.
meaning. Like, I knew when I was watching it as a kid that, like, wow, this is a sad song. This is like really, but I didn't understand because not much had changed in my life at that point. But you grow older and your life changes, and so it's just, oh,
Mm.
it's a beautiful song and a beautiful movie. So that's a moment. I bet you thought I was going to do a Doctor Who moment. There are plenty of
Well,
those, but
considering your background, I did go maybe, but I love that. It's brilliant. I think
if we're
it's
doing Doctor Who moments, it has to be Vincent and the Doctor. Like, that's the quintessential
yeah.
moment for Doctor Who for me.
No, I think it's interesting when I ask that question. A lot of people do go towards their sort of childhood, and I also find it interesting that, especially with sort of kids television, kids films, that the sort of the films that have real meaning, like hidden meaning and sort of messages, and then you get sort of like the Super Mario movie that's just like whatever they threw at it. Um, and it's the ones that you come back to are the ones with those hidden meanings because you enjoy it for, oh, look at the bear and the Tigger and everything like that, and then it becomes a story of sort of foundlings and relationships as well.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
famously, when the Winnie the Pooh characters are supposed to be um, linked to different mental illnesses. I think, is it something like that?
I've heard that people have definitely found that you can see characteristics that,
Yeah,
I don't know how much to credit A. Milne with that being his original intention, but I do think that people have found, commonalities with, I think, Eeyore representing depression,
mm.
maybe, I think, and this is something that goes around on social media. I think it's Tigger has ADHD,
Yeah, yeah,
maybe Rabbit has OCD, Piglet anxiety, stuff like that. Where I think, it was just important that the characters explored a lot of emotions that people had, and I think they could relate to that in many ways.
yeah. A brilliant answer, I must say. Um, so my next question is back to Doctor Who now. What made you a Doctor Who fan, and then how has the show affected your life?
Yeah, so I have to credit my dad with that.
Mm,
He found the show on Netflix, watched, series one, series two, I think were out at that time. And he thought, you know what, I think the kids would really enjoy watching this. And he showed me and my brother and my sister. Um, Rose was the first episode we watched. I think we watched, kind of a couple of Eccleston, but really we dived
yeah,
into David Tennant, and that's who I consider my first, doctor.
yeah,
So that was how he got us into it, and it stuck. We were all still fans of it, and we got my mom into it as well down the road, and we all just, it was one of the very rare shows that all of us could agree to watch at the same time. I think if you many
yeah,
people have family and friends where you cannot decide a single movie to watch because somebody doesn't like it, and so Doctor Who is one of those rare things where the whole family loved it,
yeah,
and it's I got more obsessed with it than the rest of
yeah.
them, but they all have picked up quite a lot over the years as well. It always surprises me when I make an obscure reference and they make it right back, and I'm like, you know that?
No, sadly, I don't get that from my family. I consider it more that they're long suffering, and so are my friends. Where I just sort of make references, and I go, "That was a reference to Doctor Who," and they have no idea what I've just mentioned or said. I keep saying the line from, I think it's Impossible Astronaut or Day of the Moon, and I think it's Day of the Moon when he goes and he's upside down, and the Doctor says, I'm doing something really clever over here, and there's no one standing around looking impressed. What's the point of having you? Or I keep shouting that in the kitchen at my friend's house, and no one knows what I'm talking about. They just think I'm really egotistical. And
That's
it's
amazing.
it's the way that it is. Yeah, my story is sort of fairly similar to you, where I remember little bits of Christopher Eccleston, but series two um, was was when I have very clear memories um, of things. So the second half of that question was how it affected your life. Obviously, with the background that you
All
have
right.
behind you, I think you're gonna have a lot to say about this question.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I should say that I think I was about 12 when I got into Doctor Who. So, I know a lot of UK fans are like, it's my first ever memory is of watching Doctor Who.
It's like
Uh,
four,
four for you, right,
three or
right.
four, yeah.
So I do remember a time in my life where, that wasn't something that was sort of my favorite show or all consuming. They were different things back
Hmm.
then. And famous, well, perhaps not so famously, my sort of little secret is that I've been a Star Trek fan longer than I've been a Doctor Who fan. I mean, that was that was a show that we
Hmm.
almost always watched from a very young age as well. And so Doctor Who changed my life in many sort of ways. I mean, just beyond the obsession with finding it out and watching as many episodes as you could every year as like the new series came out, and then discovering this thing of like, wait, I remember the moment where I found out that there was another Doctor Who, and it was an older Doctor
Oh,
Who,
right, yeah.
and I thought it was sort of that this was a remake, but then I found out it was a continuation. And so it was back when Netflix sent DVD discs out in the mail, and you could request them, and they would come in the
Hmm.
mail. And half the time they were scratched up, like you wouldn't believe. But I had a whole queue of every Doctor Who DVD that they had in their system, and I had to wait my turn because other people were ordering DVDs in my family from Netflix. But I watched the show that way, and then eventually I had just enough allowance to buy one VHS a week. Off of Amazon, like the cheapest used VHS, I got it. And eventually, a friend of mine said, DVDs last longer. And I was like, you know what? That's a good idea. And so I started collecting on DVD and have not stopped since. It's become just, an
Okay.
absolute,
Is
I
it,
think I
I was
had
going to say
maybe half of,
compulsion. Is it
yeah,
compulsion to
yeah.
keep buying
I,
them?
I have had, I think maybe my collection was half this size, if not more so, maybe 40-30% when I started my YouTube channel. And so since then, being able to connect with other Doctor Who fans has been amazing. In my trip to the UK, I got to meet up with some of the very first channels that welcomed me into the
Mm.
WhoTube sphere. All things Doctor Who, uh, Adam Time Lord Fishwick, Alex Goddard. I met I think the channel's Who Chaser, with Dominic Martin.
Don't G Martin, yeah.
These and I was so hoping to meet up with you at some point. It did
No,
not work out.
no.
I'm sure we'll cover because I went all over the UK, so
Mm.
I'm sure when people watch the vlog, I'm going to get comments of people being like, I'm not that far from there. We could have met up, and I
That
just wish I've
that
been
may
able to
happen.
send like an email
Mm.
blast out to like every subscriber and just have been like, I'm going to be here at all these times. But it was a
Mm.
very last minute planned trip. So, but it was amazing to meet up with folks who welcomed me into the WhoTube community. And since then, posting, videos weekly, it's allowed me to, start doing interviews with Doctor Who writers, and it got me connected with Taraku's distributors and their unofficial Doctor Who annuals, and I got to
Mm.
write for the 1997 annual, and that's connected me with more Doctor Who writers and artists, and it's really been amazing. So it has massively changed my life in many ways.
Because you do it as part, if not all, of your job, don't you? It's definitely part of it. I don't know if this is your full time
Right. So
career or not.
I do video editing and web design, and that helps bring in enough income that this I can also have income come from YouTube AdSense, such as it is. It's about $200 a year I get from YouTube AdSense,
Yeah.
and I have I also do. Uh, like I'm part of several affiliate programs, so Amazon, Forbidden Planet, stuff like that. So when people shop using those links, it helps support me at no extra cost to them. And I'm currently working on building the sort of version two, the official beta version of my Museum app, which is a Doctor Who collector's
Yeah.
app. So I've been adding in as many DVDs and Blu-rays as I can find, so that I can have all region DVD and
Mm.
Blu-ray collectors app, and also more and more merchandise from Museum.net. So I also run that site. If you've ever seen it around, I post a lot about it on Facebook. So I've been keeping that up to date with all Doctor Who merchandise since 2021. So yeah, it's a part-time thing as far as income goes,
Yeah.
almost a full-time thing as far as the time that I devote to
Yeah.
it.
This is the trouble. I spend a lot of my time thinking about it, and probably less time thinking about my actual job.
Yes,
But
yes.
that's the way it
Yeah.
is. So as we're talking about sort of videos and content creation, what actually inspired you initially to make your videos?
Yeah, so I'd always been filming videos from a very young age. I had a black camcorder,
Mm.
um, you know, cheap little thing. But I think you actually see one that looks just like it. Rory's setting one of them up in like Amy's Choice when they need to like monitor the village. There's a bunch of cameras that they're setting up for security purposes or
Um,
something. It's one of the episodes,
in
maybe Hungry Earth,
it's the
Cold
Hungry
Blood.
Earth, yeah, because they are
Yeah,
setting up all
yeah,
these cameras, yeah.
right. So yeah, Hungry Earth, and there's one that looks just like my camcorder. But I would film my action figures, my Star Wars action figures, and I loved watching in slow motion and in reverse. So I would like make these like you know line them all up and then like throw a brick at them and watch them go flying in the end. And,
Just
doing this
destroy your
cloning. So
action figures.
yes, yes, absolutely. The poor things they got real beat up, but it was I enjoyed watching them, and so that just sort of started telling stories with action figures, and my Doctor Who action figure obsession
Mm.
started. Like I would make these sort of short films in my backyard and edit them with whatever free software I could get my hands on. And from there, different projects set up that I would do. I'd do short films with my friends. I'd do projects for people. I've filmed a couple weddings, which is so stressful. So stressful.
Oh, I
I
could not do a wedding. I could never
It was
film a
friends
wedding.
who asked me to film at their wedding, so I couldn't say no. And I was just the stressful thing is you get one shot. You get one shot at it to
Mm.
make this thing that, and I remember it took like 80 to 100 hours to edit. But you get one shot to get this memory that everybody would have. And I'm like, why are you trusting like a 16-year-old who's doing this for free to capture this moment? Please, to
It
anybody
was
who's
the word
listening,
free that
pay
may
a
have been the
professional.
incentive when you're planning a
Pay a
wedding.
professional. There's so much about your wedding that doesn't last forever.
Yeah.
So please invest in the don't cheap out on your videographer or
the,
photographer.
the last wedding I went to, the guy, it was a full team. There was sound people, and there
Good.
were
Yeah.
people taking photographs, people taking videos. There was so much footage, um, and like I said, these high end cameras,
Oh,
covering every angle that the bride as she walked down the aisle and everything like that. But I know I could not. I have a lot of respect for somebody that wants to film weddings as a
I
job
know. So
because
much respect.
it's stressful going to a wedding, let alone
Hmm.
being intimately involved, being involved in the actual production of the whole thing.
Yeah, yeah. I
I
did
mean,
it once, and I will never do it again.
terrified. And
I have so much respect. So the reason I started a YouTube channel was that I was faced with whether or not I wanted to go to college,
right,
and I knew that the thing I would want to go to college for would be video production and social media. And I looked at the various sort of, I did try a couple of classes online, and I looked at what the offerings were, and there just wasn't anything that was, by the time, let's say, something like TikTok ends up in a college textbook, it will be as a footnote in history. It's not going to be bleeding edge, find out about how to do social media. You can
yeah,
find out about traditional film and
mm,
media production. There's a lot of that. But I thought, why not just spend time jumping in and learning video production and, doing more of it,
mm,
and try out this sort of full-time YouTube thing. And that's what I did essentially, instead of go to college. And so, in a very full circle sort of way, this trip, my UK trip, happened as, it was made partially financially viable. I'm still paying a lot of it off, and will be for a while. But it was kind of, the impetus was a you know it being kind of a graduation gift. At least for the tickets to go to the UK were a kind of graduation gift, even though I never went to college and never graduated. But it was sort of a recognition of, hey, it's been 7 years, and we
mm.
want to help you do this. So that was really kind of a full circle moment for me,
Yeah.
and
That
meant a lot.
the closing of that chapter, I think, as well. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
brilliant. So you were talking about we talked about your collection.
Hmm.
The question that I didn't pose to you last time, that I regretted doing so, was in terms of percentage, how much of your collection do you think you have completed out of every single release? So, are you out of 100%, are you 20% there? I thought it might be easy to break it down into regions rather than
Yes.
doing the full thing. So, region one,
Yeah.
that's American, isn't it?
Hmm. Yep. Yep. It's region one is the U.S. and Canada,
Mm,
and for DVDs. And so, if we're talking DVDs and Blu-rays,
yeah.
for region one, I would say that I have 95% of all the releases that are out there. I think there's a couple stragglers, a couple. I mean, I have all the episodes and content, but I think there's a couple of versions. I have the Blu-ray, but not the DVD yet, and such.
Right.
So almost 100% of the region one releases for sure. Even of the VHSs, I have all of the US VHSs as well, 100% of them. And for the US Blu-rays as well, I think I'm 100% caught up. There's not nearly as many as there are in the UK. For Region 2 slash Region B, it's been growing, but I'd say I have maybe, I'm looking at my shelf here, maybe, well, I'd be lucky to say if I had 20%, maybe.
Because I was thinking there's an awful lot in
There's a
region one,
lot, and I
region two.
don't, I have, well, yeah, yeah. I think I have 20% because there's a lot. I mean, maybe 30,
Yeah, because
maybe
from
30.
my eye, you've got volumes. So, like when they did the new series in volumes, you've got box sets for
Mm-hmm.
volumes. Sometimes they split series
Mm-hmm.
into like half, so like volume one, volume two.
Right.
Then you've got all of the classic DVDs,
Mm-hmm.
all of the Blu-rays, the steelbooks, the special releases.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's thousands upon
It's
thousands of items in my
it's a
mind.
lot, and ironically, in my app, you'd be able to tell this information, because I have a list of them. So I have all the collection sets so far as the Blu-rays go, and I've gotten some of the standard
Mm,
editions as well. I've got right behind me. You can see here, about I'd say half, 60% of the new series steelbooks and all of the animated steelbooks so
I was going to say
far.
they look like all the animated ones. I'm trying to
Yeah,
see which one's the.
I don't have Spearhead, and I think that's it. I don't have. I mean, obviously,
I
Celestial
think
Toymaker or the
yeah,
Daleks in color is on its way.
yes, which is because it just only got released in it really. In
Hmm.
terms of importing it into America, um, I think yeah, you're. I think you've got slightly less of the new series ones. I don't think you're a bit under
Yes,
half because there's a
I
lot
have
of
a
them.
lot of the new series separate sort of single releases of for the UK, like the
The volumes where you
volume
get
one,
3
two,
episodes.
three,
Yeah.
four. Yeah, 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 yeah. I got quite a few of those actually on my UK trip. It was
Mm.
amazing. They had a deal for like five for a pound at this
Yeah.
one like antiques store, and I was like,
Yeah.
"You're coming home with me."
Yeah.
Like I made room in my suitcase for like 25 of them and brought them home. It was
And
amazing.
it must have been. We'll get onto this later, but it must have been quite a shock when you think that these items are so important to you, and then you go into. I don't know. If you, I think I may have even messaged you about this. Going into a shop, it's called CEX, and you go in
Yeah,
there, and they have them all for like a pound, depending on
yeah.
what they have. And I was like,
I'm like, I can't get any items shipped to me for a pound. Never
yeah,
mind buy one for a pound.
I know. For at one stage, I remember they used to be 50p in that shop. They used to be 50p, and then they
Yeah, these were
changed it.
20p in the in this antique store or collectibles store. Yeah.
Yeah. No. So then there's the other two regions. So there's 3 and 4, which I don't remember the areas that they cover.
Yes.
I think 4's Australia, or is 3
Yep.
Australia?
And no, four.
4's
Four is
Australia. Right.
Australia. I think also New Zealand. And for region four, I have a. I think I might have. Checking my shelf here. I think it might be 5 to 10%. It's a basic start. I do have for German releases. I've probably got about I'd say definitely 33%, if not more, 40% of their releases. They have beautiful releases, but they don't have close to a complete classic collection. They've got a lot of the 80s for Doctor Who. I think they've got all the fifth,
Mm.
sixth, and seventh, eighth on DVD in the new series, of course. Yeah, so maybe 30% of the German releases, but their classic series, they're just now, this past year, they've had third Doctor releases for the first time. So that's just wild to think about, like
Yeah.
the UK has had third Doctor releases since what, 2000,
Yeah.
2001,
Yeah.
2002,
DVD wise, I think if I'm not mistaken, the DVD's finished being produced around 2005, maybe a bit later. Sort of David
uh,
Tennant's run, I think, that they finished actually
they
releasing all of the episodes that they had available at the time.
it was definitely and so it's just something we sort of think take for granted is that the episodes would be available on DVD and Blu-ray, but now BBC iPlayer is a thing. Like that's a huge update since the last time we spoke.
Mm.
Is that we used to collect out of necessity to be able to well, I say necessity. To be able, there was a purpose of being able to watch the
Yeah.
episodes whenever you wanted to, and that's never been an option
Mm.
available in the US until kind of BritBox came out, and that gave us huge access for a pretty cheap price to 90% of classic Doctor Who.
Oh, was BritBox available overseas as well? I just thought it was a
Yeah.
British
Hmm.
thing,
No,
because
it is. Since about 2019, 20 something, past couple of years, it's
oh,
been available.
right, that's weird.
Yeah.
I bet there's a lot of people who pay the TV license that are very angry about
it's
that.
it's it's Netflix, but for British people. And Acorn TV is also, but I mean for British shows. Acorn TV is also another one that has a lot
Right.
of British shows on there. They're very popular in the US, and so with BBC iPlayer though, that's, correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean you pay the TV license, but it
Yeah.
is no extra cost on top of that. It's available you know.
I think a TV license is about 125, 130, something like that a year.
Hmm.
That is. Um, so and you need that to watch any live television. So
Yep.
even if you're watching ITV or anything or Channel 4, you need to have a TV license. Uh, the only way you get away with it is if you can watch demand as long as you're not streaming live, you're fine, or using BBC shows. Um, I guess that also applies to like BBC Sounds and stuff like that as well. Uh, yeah, it's been a weird thing to see because for the first couple of months, only till recently, really, every single day that you looked, it was on the front cover all the time. Was Doctor Who, Whoniverse everywhere,
Hmm. Hmm.
and it's died down obviously because it's not peak season at the minute. I'm sure it'll
Hmm.
come back up, but even now, when you type in anything into iPlayer, um, you type in any show. I think I typed in Robin Hood because I got really nostalgic recently. I watched a show called The Musketeers, which I loved, and when I finished The Musketeers, I decided that I'd go back and watch Robin Hood from sort of like 2005 to 2007, and
Is that
it's
the one with Richard Armitage?
with Richard
Yeah,
Armitage, yeah.
I've seen that. Yep.
And it was the first show of a genre that sort of gave way to sort of Merlin and
Yep.
Primeval and stuff like that. And
Yep.
I think and the first series, so there's some ropey stuff going on. There's people getting hit by axes that just sort of get tapped and stuff like that. But for the most part, it's a really fun show, and the theme music is brilliant. Um, but like I say, I was typing in Robin Hood, and what comes up like Robots of Sherwood. Like it's
Hmm.
so ingrained into iPlayer now because there's so much of it, and it seems to be that more is going to come eventually. Um,
Well,
I think
Patrick Troughton was the first person to ever play Robin Hood on TV.
was he
Hmm.
really? Why do
Yeah.
I feel like I should know that? I'm trying to think of
And
my
then I
earliest.
think one of his descendants is in the Robin Hood show.
Yeah, his grandson
Yeah.
is Much. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
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 Brilliant. That is great. I didn't know that. That's really fun. I like that. Yeah, but so I was going through all of that, and like I say, you're an iPlayer now, and it appears everywhere. And I've watched a couple of episodes that I wouldn't normally watch because they were on iPlayer. I went away for a weekend, and I took Terror of the Zygons with me, which I wouldn't be able to do before. Um, so it's very exciting to have everything there, but at the same time, it's a bit like spoilt for choice. There's tons of stuff that I just haven't watched yet. There's something called Totally Doctor Who, which I've never really heard of. Um,
Yeah.
there's all that to watch. There's Confidential
Yeah.
to watch. I mean,
Hmm.
in America, obviously, you're not getting any of that stuff. I know you get the specials on Disney Plus, don't you?
Yeah.
But
None of Doctor Who
nothing.
Unleashed. Well,
Yeah,
that just came out digitally on so
Steelbook.
that it takes a little while to come out the Unleashed. You get to watch it right after the episode airs.
Yeah,
We have to wait month or two.
that is such a
You
shame
know,
though. Because I think
and it
that was the beauty with Confidential and the Unleashed was that you get it straight away. So you have
right.
that week where as you're waiting, that you'd have the episode, you watch it again, you watch Unleashed, you watch it again, that pattern. But I bet you must have seen everything that was more remotely interesting there because they were posting about it all the time.
It was. I mean, it was very cool. And I got to. I was not in the UK when, sadly, when any Doctor Who episodes aired. That was one of my bucket list items. Was to see a Doctor Who episode as it
What?
aired in the UK. Because I thought I had a good chance
Yeah.
because they were saying it would happen that there would be episodes on a
Mm.
Saturday or something in November, and I was there for like the first two Saturdays, but it aired. Obviously we had the Daleks in color on the
The
twenty
last one,
third,
yeah.
and then we had episodes. So
Weren't you
unfortunately,
around for? I thought you were around for Daleks in Colour. I thought
no, I left on the 19th.
you missed all of
I
that.
Yeah, I see. The sad thing is, I tried to get home in time for Thanksgiving so that I could
Ah,
see my family.
mm.
which was also this during the 60th anniversary year. It was Doctor Who's 60th happened exactly on Thanksgiving Day, which was not convenient for me because my where I go to my grandmother's and she barely has any Wi-Fi, doesn't have doesn't get the BBC America channel. So I was like, I'm gonna be up at my grandmother's where I cannot be part of this Doctor Who biggest day of the decade for the 60th.
Mm.
But sadly, after when I came back from my trip, and actually slightly before then, I got sick and I couldn't end up going to Thanksgiving either. So I missed both the 60th, kind of being able to extend my trip and being there in the UK for the 60th, and I missed Thanksgiving. But the whole trip was so amazing, it was worth it. But yeah, I didn't end up going to Thanksgiving because I was still didn't want to give anybody anything because
No.
I was sick.
I mean, it's such a shame that you missed it.
I know.
That night, I mean, I'd seen the Daleks before, but I was obviously watching it in colour this time. And then to watch Adventure in Space and Time, and my reaction when Shooty appears
Yeah.
completely unannounced, and you see
Oh,
him, and you go, that's his like
that
first
was
appearance, so
amazing.
to speak. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was absolutely amazing. Then you go on Twitter and you see everyone doing the same thing.
Yep.
It was brilliant. It was
Mm-hmm.
brilliant time, those couple of weeks. To be honest. It feels like it was
Yeah.
ages ago now. The world
Yes.
feels very different since we had David Tennant
The
as the Doctor.
whole It's kind of ironic because the whole year of the 59 when Doctor Who turns 59
Mm,
in 2022, and it felt like that whole year between that and when the 60th happened was the big celebration year, even though it's Doctor Who's 59th year of existence. And then we had the 60th and the new specials come out.
yeah.
And now this year that is technically Doctor Who's 60th. I mean, every Saturday we have a new episode turning 60. It's like all quieted down, and like we'll have the new series,
Yeah.
that'll be exciting. But like it's a funny thing about the way that we celebrate
I suppose
leading
it
up
is,
to
yeah.
the birthday, but not the
Yeah.
entire year after. I feel like we're all just taking a breath from that and the holidays, and just there was so much happened in 2022 to 2023 that
Mm.
I needed a breather. I posted like 120 videos that year, and normally I'm supposed to post like 52, ideally. Like it was so much news, so much going on,
There were all, it was last year was a really great year to be a Doctor Who fan. I think for the first time in a long
Mm,
time, I felt like as a group, as a sort of fan base, we were not always connected, but we were sort of in it together where we had these things, these events, like Shooty appearing and things like that, where not not all of my friends are Doctor Who fans, and even then I could still get them to see episodes, and I could get them
mm,
to send them. I sent them lots of edits on TikTok, just constantly. David Tennant
amazing.
edits and Meep edits, everything. I was sending everything. So it was a very fun time, but like I say, probably quite an awful time for my friends. So we've talked about sort of your regions, your collection, and I want to know about your sort of presenting style. So, like say, all those videos, that's 126, did you say, last year?
That last year, yeah, around
Yeah,
about, yeah.
and obviously you covered some of the time that you were away as well with other
Yep.
videos.
Yep.
Um, my question to you though is any tips for presenting yourself or just being active on YouTube?
Yeah, absolutely. So the a
I
lot
don't,
of
I don't think
I
I
think
summed
there's a
up
lot.
presenting yourself very well, to be honest. But in terms of presenting in front of a camera, yeah.
Right, right. It's something that takes a lot of getting used to.
Mm,
There's a certain added amount of added energy that you need to bring because the camera and the recording takes away some energy, but you still need it to feel, personable and relaxed. I think there was a particular style in YouTube of people being like, "Hey everybody, what's up?" and like keeping everybody's attention and their energy level is, through the roof. But I think that's kind of changed, and it's more of a like let's hang out and spend time with these people.
Mm.
And so that style is kind of, it's an interesting balance to get. And I think a lot of people are kind of very nervous on camera and think that you either have it or you don't, but it is just about practice. And for me, I think one of the things I've been trying to improve on in my presenting style is not being afraid of silence, and saying filling it with, those word fillers, trying to think through your thoughts and your senses before you speak, because the time that I save in presenting accurately my thoughts on camera is less time that I have to spend editing that out. And so I really admire people like Tom Scott, who does these like 20-minute one take videos on very technical subjects, has memorized an entire script, and can just off the cuff present some. I
Mm.
mean, not off the cuff. He obviously
Yeah.
spent 10 years, honing that
Yeah.
skill. But the less time I and ah and speak coherently about a subject, the more time I save in the edit.
I do wonder with the, like you said, the Tom Scott videos, is how many times does it take him to do a take?
Right.
Because you have to get through the whole thing, or I suppose you can get away with the cut, a hidden sort of cut, and that you may not notice. But um, in terms of doing that big paragraph, how many times does he just like go up on the last sentence and have to go to the start again and try the whole monologue bit again? You know.
Right. Right.
But like, I'm
So yeah.
also quite conscious with my ums and my uh, the way that I'm presenting myself, because like I say, you don't want to be sort of leaning away from the microphones and sort of looking disinterested. You've got to keep the energy up, and I think as I sort of had my friends here, they were like, "Why are you being so loud? Like, why are you talking in this voice, like projecting your voice and sort of adding that spring to it?" Um, presenter Dan, as they called it. And like I said, you have to, because it's the only way that the camera picks up on your energy, I guess, and makes it more
Right.
interesting. But I think you can be, like you say, you've got to be genuine nowadays. I think if you're
Hmm.
either uh, stuck up, or you're too showmanistic, you're displaying a an image that is unfaithful to yourself,
Hmm.
then I don't think that audiences cling to that. I think that people want somebody that's like that they have a connection with, that feel like is sort of like a friend. It's a really strange
Right.
dynamic, I think, sort of
Yeah. Very.
presenting and being on YouTube.
Yeah, because you're looking for authenticity, but when you're in that environment of being recorded, it is
Mm.
very hard to, forget that the camera's there when you just set up lights and you're supposed to be looking into it and making sure that people can see the object that you're holding. It is something that you're consciously aware of, but
Mm.
you're hoping to get across an authenticity there that makes people feel a connection
Mm.
and doesn't remind them that they're watching something that is produced. It's spending time with another person, I think, is kind of the purpose. And I've been lucky that I chose a subject of Doctor Who that I am very naturally passionate about and get very easily excited by. And 7 years down the line, I'm still screaming at the TV when David Tennant is comes back, or
Yeah.
we get Shooty on the screen for the first time, and it's just something that I don't find myself having to fake, is the excitement of seeing a new artwork or
Mm. Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
But there is always the prior to the video being filmed. You might have been having a bad day. You might be feeling stressed about fitting in the filming time. Do I know enough about the subject to talk accurately about it? There are just, you're filming every day and there's often news every day. So there's an element of making yourself
Mm.
camera ready, but I've never found that I have to fake being excited about Doctor Who.
No, I think over time I've begun to not care much about the camera. I kind of
Yes.
I sort of
Yes.
know that I'm in shot, and I kind of understand that if I move past a certain line, I'm going to be out of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But many times you like, so you get frustrated where you're filming something, you go back and you realize it's all out of focus or something like that.
Yes.
And
Yes.
those things that you don't see are always quite
Mm,
tricky, but they do happen. They happen all the time. Everyone, it happens to everyone. I think I said
yeah.
last time that you know um, you think that everyone has this very smooth running computer that has this perfect editing speed and nothing ever crashes, and that you have
Oh,
a brilliant presenter that never stutters on their words and knows exactly what they're going to say. And sometimes when you might have an idea of what you're going to say, and then when it comes out, you end up saying something completely different. And
yes.
you go, that sentence actually didn't make any sense. A few times, in fact, I've said sentences thinking they were correct, left them in, and then realised that they were wrong, that they didn't actually make any grammatical sense. It's the way it
Absolutely.
is.
And I've filmed things with other people and seen how nervous they are on camera. And I have to remind myself that
Mm,
this is something, I've filmed over 700 videos in the past 7 years. Like, this is something that I am very used to doing, but it's also a style that I'm used to doing. I know as the editor that I can edit anything out, and I often
yeah.
do, of what I need to say. I'm not as nowhere near as good as Tom Scott is at doing a 20-minute thing, because my style has always been YouTube jump cuts are okay, or we film this again if we get it wrong, or there are plenty of times where I film a video one time and I delete the recording and film it again, because that was almost a writing process for me, was trying to record it and get it out successfully, and then going, now I know what order I want to say things in, how I want to say things, and I'll re-record it if I have time. So yeah, I do feel like it's a skill that you build up in certain areas, but then vlogging for the first time is a totally different thing from being alone in your, it's a
Yeah.
very, filming YouTube videos by yourself, as and you have more guests than I do, in person anyway, that it's a different thing. It's a very solitary thing to be in your room and you're recording and you're getting used to the camera. But to even be holding up a phone and talking in public was something totally different that I had never tried to do. And I have so much respect
Mm,
for vloggers, because you have to be in the moment, enjoying the adventure, getting to your next destination, but you also need to be chronicling that, and in a way that isn't, has transitions
factual.
built
Yeah.
into the
Yeah.
next
Yeah.
moment, because now I'm having to go back in and
Mm,
piece together these different parts of the
yeah.
video.
Yeah.
And even, it's a whole different style that I did get used to it. I did feel like I got pretty used to filming in public, and nobody ever gave me a bad experience with it. Nobody, interrupted the video.
Mm.
Nobody really looked at me weird. I think I have a clip that I edited the person out of, but they ended up being behind me when I was recording, and they kind of gave me a weird look when I started talking and filming. But I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I'll just crop you out, and we're good to go. And I never even saw it, but it was a
Yeah.
good positive experience. But I've never vlogged
No,
in
no.
public before,
I
really.
had Mark Bray on from MB and Homeland, who make Doctor Who fan films, a couple of months ago. And one of the questions I asked him was, what is like your experience of setting up a giant TARDIS, having these people in costumes, you're standing there with a boom mic, and you've got a big camera, and you've got all these things. What do people think they're doing? And he said, oh, some people think we're littering and we're tipping, and but a lot of people are just interested to see what we're filming. Um,
Yeah,
and I think with the crew, you're in a very different situation where you just pick up your phone and start talking to it.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I mean, when I did my brief vlogging career, when I went to Sheffield, a lot of it was, I know me and Will have a very good dynamic, and I kind of know the jokes that he will play, and I don't think he even knows he's playing them, but I can sort of set him up for jokes, and then I was like, okay, so then this bit can go here, and then I can move that bit in there, and like you say, you're trying to document at the same time as making it fast paced and interesting without it being too factual and too boring. I'll have to watch that video because I do remember finding it very funny at the time. Whether it's aged well in that respect is another thing. But I just remember, like, we spent 5 minutes walking towards what was clearly a dead end. Like, there was a road closure, and we were walking towards it. And I just go, so we just spent the last 5 minutes walking towards a closed road. And I went, I hope I've captured a shot in which I take a frame of the closed road. And I did. And I was like, I didn't even intend to be a joke, but just by looking over the footage and being creative with it, you find those sort of things. And hopefully, as you're going through your video, you're finding those little things as well.
Yes, yes. And it was so much that happened that I don't remember every single clip that I recorded.
Mm.
And so it's really nice to, have this way of
Yeah.
reliving the event. I mean, every night I would write down everything that happened during the day because I knew that I'd have to be editing it a couple weeks down the line and trying to remember the order in which everything happened. Um, I knew that I couldn't just rely on what I had filmed. I needed to also get it straight in my mind. And I also would call home and I, would tell them about my day. So there were some days where I just recorded that phone call. And now I'm using that as narration for my vlog because I'm like, that's so much more cooler
Yeah.
than adding it in post, but saying like, this is a phone call I made like the first
Mm.
day that I got to the UK, and I'm talking about the prior day, or my it's technically the end of the second day was in the UK, and I was talking about the first day. So it was just really special to have those memories, and this is going to
Definitely.
be
Yeah.
a really big um, project, but it's going to be one that I'm gonna love revisiting years down the line. It's my version of
Mm.
a photo album or a journal. I've never
Yeah.
been good at scrapbooking or writing by hand in a journal, but videos have always been my way of journaling. So
Yeah. So we talked briefly about your sort of relationship with sort of working and then editing jobs and then being
hmm
a YouTuber in the meantime.
yeah.
Um, this question's a little bit personal, I have to say. But what stresses do you have about working in the media industry? And do you wish you moved away from it and chose a different career path and not stuck where you were? Because um, there was a phase in my life when I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do, and the idea was that I would start to try and like do this. I would become like a
hmm
podcast host, and like
hmm
for it was a few weeks, but I did. But I'm glad I didn't stick with that because I think by doing that and with the other people that I've interviewed, I interviewed Adam Martin, and we were
mm
talking about the idea of jobs and trying to find work. It's a stressful process, and even for me, um, when people say that they have like stable income where they have like set hours and that everything that I mean I couldn't work for somebody else now, but the idea that I had such rigid discipline in terms of when I worked, and that each time I knew how much I was getting that week, uh, would have been important. So over to you. What sort of
yeah.
stresses
So
are there for you? We'll break it down into two parts, shall we? What are the stresses?
yeah. So being an entrepreneur, do working for yourself, freelance. It's you're trading. You're trading stability for in a strange sense for more control.
Mm.
um, and even though the sort of, I don't know, the dream is sort of like to be your own boss, but in a way that's absolutely true. In a way you're just getting many other bosses that are your clients that come along,
Yeah.
and it either rains or it pours, and
Yep.
it's either feast or famine. It People don't spread the jobs out to what fits in your schedule. It's like, four people need something or nobody needs something.
Mm.
And so you are absolutely, you know trading that stability of a regular income for something where you can structure how you work to when you best work, and you have a lot more flexibility in your schedule, which works for me, where I need to, at the drop of a hat, make a news video about Doctor Who and all this stuff. And I am very lucky that I have this safety net of I live with my dad, right? So like that is a huge privilege and bonus to me that uh, gives me the ability to not be super, super stressed out about whether or not I'll have enough money for the month. But, because if I was on my own with my own rent and stuff, that would be a lot more stressful. I know now that I'm, making enough that it could be consistent, but starting out is very, very inconsistent, and it could be very, very stressful. So I think it's very important to have a safety net if you're going to, in a very unstressed way, launch into kind of an entrepreneurial sphere. So I think that is a big stress, and there's an underlying stress though of not feeling like you're contributing monetarily to your family budget, and so that is something that people don't necessarily talk about. If you have a safety net in place, that you still, if you're not making a lot of money and you're working on your passion project, yes, there's other ways that you can help out,
Mm.
and there's plenty of ways that I do. But it's a very stressful thing for me to feel like you're not helping financially, and you just want to get to that point where you can say, no, this meal's on me, or no, this, I've got this bill this month, or I'm gonna get this,
Yeah.
and gonna it's been a while, and I have a lot of people who believe in me, and that's really important. But it is a very big stress for me to like you want to feel like you're contributing
Mm.
financially, and that can be
Yeah.
a little bit wearing when you can't.
I totally agree. Everything that I've experienced since going self-employed has been more or less that. And obviously, for my opinion of it at the minute is that I have a serious job, and then I have a hobby that I take seriously, that
Yeah.
I hope I can do something with.
Hmm.
Um, so with that, but like you say, I'm very good with my money, and not I'm not a overspender or anything like that. I've really cut down how much I spend, and I monitor everything.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, the idea that if I started taking on rent, if I started paying utility
Hmm.
bills, and something like my glasses breaking happened, I would be in a sort of a financial situation that's a little bit ropey. Um,
Right.
and that
Right.
sort of thing does worry me. Obviously, we're both quite young, and so
Hmm.
there's that fun but element to it as well. But there is an element of one day this is going to get serious. You can't keep doing this in your 50s.
Right. Right. That is a stressor, and you know the thing that I've kind of been focusing on, because there's also this aspect of social media being so transient, and you see, like, the other day, Facebook was down for a couple hours, and
Yeah.
then the next day LinkedIn was down for you're just very aware that if you don't kind of diversify the different platforms that you're on, that and it's why I back up my YouTube videos, right? One day some people get their channels randomly deleted, and stuff. So you need to prepare for that. And it's not that I think that I'm going to be doing YouTube until I'm 90. I don't think YouTube's going to be a thing when I'm 90. But it is teaching me skills that are very applicable in the wider world. So when you ask, is it something that I've regretted at times? Um, the thing that's been hard has been trying to avoid burnout, because Doctor Who news and Doctor Who videos and episodes, they come out on the weekend, and there's a lot of big news that comes out when people are at home on their phones on the weekend. And I do remember some past years or Christmases that I remember, like, one particular one where I think a new trailer dropped on
Mm.
like Christmas Day, and I was just like, all I want to do is just have this day off and spend time with my family. And I felt like I was failing to post about it, but I was also so distracted about it. I felt like I was failing to be in the moment. And it was really it was tough. And
Mm.
and it's like, why can't they put out news during my Monday to Friday schedule, where I'm just desperately scrounging around for videos to
Mm.
make news about or whatever? And so that's very tough too. And so I've had to kind of adopt a model with
Mm.
my everyday life where my weekends don't look that much different from my weekdays, because I do work some in them, but then I make my weekdays a little bit more relaxed so that I don't feel like I'm working all the time and stuff. So that's been really important for me to avoid that sort of burnout. But I
Mm.
haven't regretted it, because especially with the pandemic and everything, I got flack when I people told me that it was a bad idea to try and go into this world of YouTube and stuff. They were saying, why don't you just take a retail job, and why don't you just work this way or that way, or do a more conventional thing, because they couldn't put me in their box of a college that I'd gone to or a job that I was going to get. And then the pandemic happens, and all of a sudden remote work and is really important, and people are seeing the value of video and social media nowadays much more than they were in 2016, and they were seeing it more then than they were in 2006,
Mm.
right? So it's been kind of a weirdly validating
Yeah.
side effect of this terrible thing of the pandemic, that kind of showed other people, oh, maybe Alex was onto something here, because a lot of businesses are seeing that video is the way that you communicate. And so now
Mm.
I, as a video editor and as having done all this social media stuff, I definitely think that those are skills that will not let me down
Yeah.
in the future. So I'm glad that I've
Yeah.
invested that time in them.
I think over the last couple of years, there sort of has been more of a lean towards the social media element to things, and I think
Hmm.
businesses have realised that they almost need a whole team behind their
Yes,
marketing. You know,
yes, you do.
there's a lot of stuff at the minute that I see where like HMVs and things like that now using their staff as essentially
Yes.
promoters and characters to
Hmm.
visit in the shop, so that when you go, you know your team quite well.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great way forward in things. I also think it's ironic that with my own job, with my gardening business,
Mm.
I posted once on that last year. I posted one post to basically say that I created a business, and I hadn't posted on it until last week, where one of my friends has just encouraged me to start posting on there as like an archive, to
Hmm.
sort of bring up the, like this is my Facebook page is being used,
Yeah.
and I think with all that experience that I've sort of got from YouTube, obviously it's a very different thing because you're going from, you know, you're talking to people essentially your own age, and with my client base, you're looking at older, and but I suppose that doesn't matter. But there's still a transfer between the two. It's just
Yeah.
working out what the balance is and where you like where to step, and things like that. But I
I have definitely
yeah,
seen other people who have gotten, you know, been through college, gotten their degrees, and started their own businesses. And then the first step that they have to do is then start making videos to promote their business and posting on social media. And I was like, there we go. That's why I've been doing this. Like
yeah,
I just skipped that other step, which I'm could, come back to bite me down in the future. But I also knew that I didn't want to, like you're saying, with being careful with your money. I
mm,
knew that I didn't want to invest thousands upon that tens of thousands of dollars in a degree that that wasn't going to be right for me
yeah,
down the line. So I'd rather have
because
invested it in my
yeah,
own business.
I always thought a
Not
very
that I
similar
had
thing.
that to
Yeah.
start. Not that I had that to start with,
I
but
mean, I think at school, I don't know what it's like with you, but there was always that push towards university and getting the degree,
oh
and the
yes,
debt
oh
that you were
yes,
getting at university was not bad debt but good debt, and somehow
yeah,
that's a
yeah.
thing. To take on a loan, I
Oh
know obviously
yeah,
you don't in the
oh
UK you
yeah.
don't pay it until you reach a certain threshold anyway, but there's still the living costs and stuff like that. Now that my sister's there, I know quite a lot about that,
Hmm.
about trying to survive on the tiny little loans that she's given and various things like that. Uh, but I was always very cautious to to do what I felt like was the right thing and not to be pushed in a direction that they wanted me
Right.
to, like, the teachers, that society, I guess, wanted me to go down.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I, if you don't know what to do, you go with the thing that everyone else is doing, which is go to uni. And I remember at one stage, some people went off to go and do their uni work, and I was in a sixth form of 150 students. There was about a room of about 15 of us that weren't going to university. And they said, what sort of things do you want to do? But they weren't really helping. Like, it was very
Hmm.
much on your own back to do those things.
Yeah.
And I, a couple of years ago, was so unsure of what I wanted to do, I kind of just ignored the subject. Um, so I probably wasn't the best student for that kind of thing. Uh, but I realised that they didn't really know what to do with us because we were just sort of the abnormal things, and
Hmm.
it was something I don't regret now because I feel like my life needed to go down this trajectory for me to get where I
Yeah.
am now. And eventually, I feel like if I went to uni, I'd be a very different person. I don't know if I'd be happier or worse off in that respect. But
Hmm.
if you start thinking about ifs and
Yeah.
buts, then there's millions of different ways that life could go.
Right, right. And I found that in my own family, like my brother and sister both went to college. My brother
Mm,
has his master's now. So the way that we talked about it was never in a way that was either putting down the lifestyle and decision to not go to college, but also not putting down that decision to
yeah.
go to college. It's about what's right for you. And if you know enough that you have a direction that you want to go into, then college can absolutely make sense for a lot of people. But it just didn't for me. And I think it's about opening up those opportunities. And just in general, I
Mm.
think entrepreneurship needs to be something that's taught and shown as an option for people at a young age, because there's a lot of
Mm.
people that would be the right choice for if they
Mm.
knew it was an option.
Just don't go to us two looking for some sort of life advice, because we're both
Yes.
currently living with our parents. Um,
Oh goodness, yes.
but do what you do what you feel's right, I guess. So what I wanted to bring you on to, when away from sort of entrepreneurial podcasts, is the UK trip, which we have mentioned a few times while here.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
so first off, I'd like to talk about some of your the cultural differences that you noticed, because you went all over the UK, and being in different
Hmm.
sections of the UK feels like being in different countries anyway. I know up north, down south. I think Do you have a sort of
Yep.
experience of those cultural differences?
So yeah, I mean, it was an amazing trip. I was there from the 25th of October to 19th of November. And in that time, I went to, let's see, I was in Manchester, London. Went to Blackpool, Liverpool, Scarborough, Tutbury and Hatton, Weston, Penarth, Cardiff, um, and Bury. So you look at the kind of, I'll have a map in my vlog and it'll look like a ball of yarn as to like where I went in the UK and how out of order it was. But it was based around like when conventions were happening
Mm,
or whoever I could stay with, was available at that time. And so I did go all over. And it was amazing to like see, because in the US it is the same, the 50 states, it's all very different, but eh, and you have different accents, you have different cultures just in the states themselves, and but it's on such a much more massive scale that you have to travel, an hour, 2 hours or something, and then you have a different, accent and stuff, or but in the UK it felt like you could go half an hour in a different direction and all of a sudden people were talking with a completely different
yeah.
accent, and it was quite the experience, and it was quite fun. And I just kept looking around like, wait a second, no, it's not that everybody else has accents, it's that I'm the one with the accent now. I'm the American with the accent. But I was
Yeah.
walking around going, wow, everybody has these accents, this is incredible. It
I think
was,
there's
yeah.
there's an awful lot. It's even for those that live here and have always been here, it feels very strange. Or even some accents sound sort of difficult to understand. So I don't
Oh
know
yeah.
how I don't know what you really came across, but
the
stereotypically
I mean
there are some trickier ones.
and because I had some friends who were from the north, and so I got to hear that. I heard I think it's Scouse accents. Like I just remember it was like
Liverpool, yeah,
John Bishop. I was in Liverpool and saw
Liverpoolian accent, yeah,
heard it was amazing to hear just people talking in a crowd in a different accent.
mm,
And of course, any British accent sounds like an accent to me. So there, everybody in the UK will probably have this experience of saying, well, this just sounds normal, but when I go over here, somebody has an accent. But for me, everywhere was an accent, and it was quite fun to listen to that. Some I could understand, but they talked very, very fast, and I would have to be. I'm sorry. Could you just say that one more time, please? I can. If you just slow down, I can understand what you're saying.
yeah.
But you literally said something that I could not keep track of. So it was very, very fun to hear the different accents. And it was just, it felt like a dream the whole time, because I was like, am I really here? Am I
Yeah,
really doing this?
yeah, yeah. I think there's something I've noticed about British people is that down south, particularly, there's a calm, collected element to how they talk. There's something about the well, depending on, there's Cockneys and stuff like that, but for the most part, as you go down, you get slower and you get more regal, and then sort of higher up, the higher you go, as you head towards Scotland, you end up with quicker talking, sort of like lazy mouths where they're not quite getting the syllables out, and things like that. So you're not the only one. I was fascinated to see how you felt about going into shops and stuff like that and seeing all these different things. Like you say, you filled your suitcase with
Yeah,
DVDs.
absolutely. I mean, collecting was, I went into different shops,
Mm.
and it seemed like wherever I went in the UK, people were surprised that I had gone there instead of somewhere else. I think London was the only place where
Yeah,
people
yeah,
weren't surprised that I'd
yeah.
gone there. But everywhere else, people were like, why'd you come here? Like, and I was like, wait a second. I think if there's a message I send to the UK, it's like, feel better about yourselves. Like, everybody everywhere else was saying, why are you coming here? And I began to think, man, I've been a lot of places. Why wouldn't I come here? Like, and so that was one
Mm.
aspect of it. And then there was surprise that people had, that I would be like surprised and happy and excited to like be in a WH Smith's buying a Doctor Who magazine. Like, people were like, "What?
Yeah,
What?
yeah.
Why would you be excited by that?" But I'm like, I have never gotten to do these seemingly mundane
Mm.
things that are every day. There's no WH Smith in the US to go and get a Doctor Who magazine at. If I want to get a new issue of Doctor Who magazine, I have to go to like a Barnes and Noble and look through, and they're normally 2 or 3 issues behind. So there's not that experience of I got to do that. I got to buy issue. It was the one with the meep on it. I think 596. The day that it came
The
out, I
poster.
got to go to a
Mm.
WH
Yeah.
Smith's and buy a new issue of Doctor Who magazine. That was a bucket list item for me. Going to a CEX and buying a Region 2 Doctor Who DVD, just new and sealed. And it wasn't that some
Mm.
UK collector had owned it and was selling it now on eBay for cheap because they were upgrading to a Blu-ray. It was that it was in store and I could buy it new. I can't do that for UK DVDs in the US, and I mean that
Mm.
makes sense. But it was on my bucket list to check it off. Going to Forbidden Planet. Oh my gosh, so exciting! I could not believe, like, I went to one and there were graphic novels from Titan Comics that were like, it was a 2 for 3 sale, two for the price. No, 3 for the price of 2. That would be a ripoff. It was
Two,
two for the
two
price
for
of 3,
three.
wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Three for the price of 2 sale, but they were also like a pound each to begin with. So I was doing the math on like, okay, how heavy do I want my backpack to be? Because I was going everywhere with a 25, 30 pound backpack and a 35, 40 pound suitcase, like almost everywhere that I went.
Mm.
Unless I was staying with somebody and I could leave my suitcase with them. I generally traveled a lot of places with a huge suitcase. So I was going, okay, how much weight do I want to have on my back? How much is it going to cost me to have an oversized suitcase on the way back to the US, and is it worth it? But I got like 6 graphic novels because I was like, these are so cheap and I want them, and I'm in Forbidden Planet in the UK. This is amazing. And I went to Forbidden Planets, I think 5 or 6. Just wherever I was, if there was a Forbidden
Yeah,
Planet, I went
collecting
there.
them. It's
I
good
know,
to
right?
know. So,
But I went to as many as I could. So that was very, very fun to collect. And then of course going to antique/collectible shops. I think in the US we have antique stores and we have like newer collectible stores like Hot Topic or something like that,
mm.
where it's like geeky collectible stuff. But in the UK there was this interesting mix of both that was like collectible shops that you
Do
went
you
in, and it
mean
was,
like charity shops?
yeah, charity shops.
Yeah.
Some were specifically like uh, all entirely, collectible stuff. But then there
Right.
was some that were a mix of
Yeah.
antique and charity shops.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. But
Furniture,
in the
bric-a-brac,
U.S.,
everything. Yeah.
right, right. In the U.S., you would go into those shops, and I think maybe one in 10 or 20, you'd be lucky to find a Doctor Who thing. It would be amazing, and it would be, a complete fluke. But in the UK, you always could find something in any store that was a Doctor Who thing that was, random and cheap. And then sometimes you found full on sections of a store that were used Doctor Who items. And some of them had really cool stuff, new stuff. It wasn't just like, all out of date and stuff that's you wouldn't want to collect. There was really cool stuff for such cheap prices. I could not believe it. I was like, no wonder I'd watched people online. I used to think I was a bad collector or something, because I'd watch people online like get an entire Big Finish collection in like 3 years, and I'm
To,
like, how are you doing that?
yeah,
Or like
I
get
felt the
all
same.
these deals,
Yeah.
all these deals, right? And so I could understand a little bit more of like, okay, wow, so you can just walk into a charity shop and get some piece of Doctor Who merchandise for very inexpensively. Okay, well, that's making a little bit more sense. I'm not saying collecting is easy everywhere in the UK, but compared to having to add on a $25-$30 shipping price and waiting time on eBay because that's your only avenue to collect, I was like, okay, this makes a little bit more sense that like things aren't as cheap or as
Mm.
easy in the US, because I'm collecting something that is, a British show. So
Yeah, I suppose I think because it's so ingrained here that I sort of take it for granted that that's what you it wouldn't take me very long to go into a charity shop and find something.
right,
You could easily like HMV. I don't know. They may have done when you were there. Um, they put like displays out for
yeah,
like
I got
Doctor
to go to
Who
an HMV.
returning.
That was
Yeah,
another thing. There's no
brilliant.
HMVs in the US.
Yeah.
There's no Forbidden Planets in the US. So it was like,
Mm.
oh my gosh, I'm in this store. And they're like, what? This is just a normal store. You're in a mall. Like, calm down.
I remember though at one stage in my life, not like the first few times I went to HMV, and I would just walk around, just going, "Oh, I know this show. I've heard about this show. Oh, I've heard about this film. I'd like to watch that." But and you kind of go around and you just sort of list off, almost like it's like a catalog in your mind that you're seeing in real life. It's a bit strange, isn't it? But
Yeah, yeah,
I suppose
it
I
was
don't know if
amazing.
you have that sort of like a HMV equivalent in America or not.
I mean, I keep going back to Barnes and Noble because they do have a DVD section that
Mm.
has like all those, those shows that you would go and watch. And there are, I'm sure, other chains as well. I'm limited to my New England experience
Mm.
of the U.S. But Hot Topic is another one where you go in and it's all like fandom stuff. Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, stuff like that. So yeah, that would be the closest thing. But it really was amazing to be able to, and also go to all these like different filming locations, and be able to go to places and see, you know I I remember being in London, and like there's an actual, you can take a tour of London that's Doctor Who locations based. Like
Can you? I don't
I
know.
found out about it a day. You needed to order the tickets like a day in advance because they normally sell out. And so like I was one day too late to take that tour. Like I did my own kind of tour
Yeah.
around London, but they take you through all the famous,
Mm.
London landmarks that you've
Mm.
seen in Doctor Who. And I made a joke with my friends that like, oh, I'm going to see like this, I went to see Buckingham Palace, and I was like, oh, well, I'm going to see this Doctor Who filming location. Cause like, Voyage of the Damned is in Doctor Who. So that's why I'm going to see
Yeah.
it. There's no other reason,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
I
yeah,
felt
I
the
mean,
same
I got
when I
to,
first went to London.
I
I felt exactly the
got,
same.
right. I got to, see the, a couple of locations from series 13. And, it was just really
Yeah.
amazing to go
Liverpool.
to
Yeah.
those different spots, and in Liverpool, and just, like, I didn't get to go there. But I did see from a nearby train station the uh, location from Trial of the Time Lord, where they have in the Ultimate Foe, this big uh, location, and it was, there was so many that I went to, and it's all going to be in the vlog. But like, it was just so cool to be able to like say like, oh my gosh, Doctor Who actors have stood here on this step, or and we
Yeah,
kept making fun of the fact that like I was excited about stairs, like because we went to a lot of locations where they'd filmed outside of buildings,
yeah, yeah.
and it's like I'm not interested in the building itself or the view of the ocean that's just there. I'm looking at these steps and trying to figure out what angle they filmed at exactly, because it was their Doctor Who people stood on these
Mm,
steps. Like we got to get that for the vlog. So it was very cool.
yeah,
And I did get to try, like I bought jelly babies from a store in person instead of having to order them online. I
very,
like
yeah.
things like that were
Literally
just
did that last week.
so right,
And it
right,
quite about 80p. Jumped on.
right. And there was one time I was getting candy. I got one thing of jelly babies at, like, it was uh, a bus station or something, like a no, a train station. And and the person who checked me out was like, said, you can get a deal for two of these for £5 and it's cheaper. And I was like, okay. And I went and got a second bag of jelly babies. And she's like, well, no, it doesn't matter which candy you can get two types of candy. And I was like, no, I want two bags of jelly babies. These are stuff that I can't get easily in the US. So I want to have these while I'm here. And it was just so funny to hear, people's reactions.
Mm,
And so, my friends would introduce me and be like, he's from the UK. And some people would be like, really? I'm so surprised. He's from the US rather, and he's in the
yeah,
UK for the first time. And
yeah,
they'd be like, really? I couldn't tell from the accent.
yeah.
But everybody was very nice. Everybody, I did not have a negative experience with the you know people in the UK at all. I was, very, like, in the US when you're on public transport, there's kind of this vibe of people being annoyed that you're taking up space, even though they're also taking up space on the train. Like, everybody's sort of just mad at other people for making this a crowded experience. But in the UK, it's just like everybody seems to understand that there's no glares really. I didn't see that anyway.
There's
The places that I went, there's just sort of this understanding that yes, we all need to get where we need to
yeah,
be, like crowd in, that's fine, But
there
like
is
in the
that. Yeah.
US, there's this extra like resentment that like,
Mm.
how dare you also be here when I'm on this train? It should be empty.
There's a bit of a sort of autopilot thing about being on trains, and I
Yeah.
also think there's a beautiful thing that British people do very well is sort of like a passive aggressive look, or they'll sort of just if you're doing something you shouldn't be doing, they'll just do that, and that's the look, and it's very
Like a
subtle.
side eye.
That
Like,
yeah,
yeah.
it's sort of like a side eye. And it'd be one of those things where you sort of like they won't make eye contact with you and stuff like that.
Yeah,
But
so maybe I
yeah,
didn't
maybe just
understand the subtleties of
yeah,
the
yeah.
passive aggression.
Maybe
I
you
was
were
just
blocking
The
somebody.
annoying
Yeah.
American who was clueless to everything. But no, I mean, I really did, everybody that I asked for directions
Mm,
was very helpful. I make sure that your phone has great battery. If you're going to be doing a lot of travel in the
yeah.
UK, I had my sister's um, external battery charger that I brought with me everywhere because my phone died about 2 or 3 times a day. It's an iPhone 8 Plus, which feels very recent to me, but they're on like
No,
the
really.
16 or something. So its battery is kind of going down. So, but I needed it entirely for Google Maps and, asking,
Mm,
texting friends, like, how do I get from this point to this point? And, so I needed it charged the whole time. But getting used to the underground system, the tube system, was very confusing for the first 2 or 3 days because I felt so much pressure. I was like, I cannot get lost here because if I'm, it's so much more fun to explore a country you've never been in with when you have friends who are showing you around. There was a part of me that just deeply relaxed when I was like, okay, I'm not going to get lost in
mm,
the dark streets that I don't know, or whatever. I never felt particularly unsafe except when it was dark and I was Google mapping my way to my next location to stay at for the night. And so having friends around, just you feel so much more relaxed and when you know where you're going. But there were times when I needed to get from point A to point B, and I was on the tube system by myself, and finding on that, they have those maps with the color coded lines, and you think, oh, how can you not understand this, and it's every stop is announced as to where you're going.
Yeah.
But I found it was very hard at first to find where the heck you were. On maps where they're always pointing to like you are here. There's none of those maps on the tube system because it's constantly going to different locations. You need like little lights that were electronically updated to be like, where are you? Like that map from the Web of Fear where the little light showed the progress of everybody
Oh right,
as
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
I needed that on the maps. I needed to like because
Mm.
I'd look on those maps and I swear I could see every stop known to man, but like I couldn't find the one that I had just started at to see where we were heading next. I did get used to it eventually. I really did. I got
Yeah.
the hang of it, but I was just in such a panic, and I definitely got on a wrong trains at the wrong time. So like I got on a train that was an hour too early, even though I had a ticket for another train. For the next one, I got onto trains that were going in the wrong direction. I got onto a train that was going to Wales, and I was like, well, maybe this is just a train where they announce everything in Welsh because there's a Welsh population. Maybe that's it. And I was like, no,
No,
it's
no,
going to
no, it's
Wales.
just Wales.
I needed to get off 3 stops. I went 3 stops the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Had to go, hours away. I think the most I traveled was there was one day I went from Scarborough
Scarborough,
Comic
yeah.
Con to uh, all the way to Weston. And so that's like top right to the bottom left of the UK. And it was an 8 hour trip, 2 3 hour train rides, and 2 3 hour bus rides. It was, oh, that's 12 hours. It was 12 hours. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was wild. I started traveling at noon and got to my friend's house at midnight. It was quite the journey because I didn't know how far apart things were, and I didn't want to have to stop in the middle and pay for
Mm.
another hotel,
Yeah.
and so I did the whole trip, and it was quite the experience. But I got to travel in so many different ways in the UK, and I did start to get the hang of it. It started to make sense, and that's something that's different in the US. Like we have public transport, but you can't. It feels like you can get almost anywhere in the UK with public transport, which
You'll
was
be
very cool because
surprised.
I don't drive. I don't
Yeah.
drive, and everywhere I wanted to go, basically, and compared to the US, you don't have public transit everywhere. Like cars are the main form of travel if you want to get,
Mm.
you can take trains and everything, but generally it's by car and you have to travel a long ways to get a lot of different places.
Mm.
But in the UK, you can really get around to a lot of places by public transport. And so that was very handy for me because, obviously even if I could, it would have been the wrong side of the road to drive on. And that was scary being in a car that like, you're trained to think, oh, turning this way into oncoming
Yeah, yeah.
traffic is
Yeah, yeah.
the wrong thing to do. So
Yeah,
seeing somebody else doing that, I had to remind myself like, okay, breathe,
yeah.
breathe, breathe. You're not driving into the wrong lane. This is how they drive here.
There's
It's
also
fine.
the left-hand drive thing as well. So we drive on the
Yes,
right,
yeah.
and in America you drive your steering
Yeah,
wheels on the
the
left.
the passenger seats and the driver's seats are
Yeah.
swapped. So yeah, getting in the
Yeah, I think there's something quite funny because in the UK, along like to get to Scotland from here, I'm sort of Midlands. To get from Scotland to get to Scotland is about 6 hours. Could be a bit longer. Which, relatively speaking, to what you travel in America, if you go from state to state, is
yeah,
hardly anything. You know,
yeah,
you can have entire
absolutely,
road trips essentially for the
yeah,
for making trips to
absolutely.
states.
You, I mean, in Vermont where I live, it's about 45 minutes to an hour to anywhere. That's not where you currently are, and yeah, we're very used to driving long distances, and still, you can drive 6 hours in certain states and still be in the same state in the US. Like that's how big things are comparatively. But what I found was just because the US is so much bigger than the UK doesn't mean that you should underestimate how big the UK is. Like the very first day, I needed to get from Manchester to London. And I didn't
Right.
realize that was like 3 hours or something, and it was going to be a while. So that definitely, cut into my some of my convention time was definitely having to leave those conventions early
Yeah.
to be able to catch my train to my next destination.
Mm.
So I did get to go to 4 conventions while I was
Mm.
in the UK, and I timing it with the 60th was the best part of the planning of the trip. There was not a lot of planning of my trip that I could take credit for or
Mm.
that happened at all. But Going during the 60th was great because there was always some sort of event happening every weekend that I was there. So I went to MCM in London, and that was amazing. I went to Barry Comic Con, got to meet Colin Baker, the Sixth Doctor. It was the
As in
first
Ireland,
year. No, Barry in
in
uh,
Wales, Barry,
Bury.
Barry,
Barry? Barry?
Barry. It's in Wales.
Barry?
Yeah, there's
No,
I thought you said Derry, as in like
oh,
Ireland, but you mean Wales. Uh,
uh,
I
no,
think
this is Barry in, let
I
me
was going to make
see
a
where
cultural reference
exactly it
that you won't
is.
understand. I was going to say it's where Gavin and Stacey is, but you don't actually
Oh,
know what that
it's,
is.
it's just outside of Manchester. It's
Is it right?
in,
Oh, it's completely different then.
it's, yeah, it was about 40-30 minutes by train. Um,
What did you
Near
say?
Bolton, in between Bolton and Rockdale.
How would you say you spell it?
Bury. It was the first year that this convention happened, and it was very successful. Colin Baker was there and saw like 1,300 people came to this. It was a art museum, and it was beautiful. I've never been to a convention that had like the guests behind their tables as per normal, but then you have these beautiful pictures, in huge frames, and right behind them. It was very, very cool, and Colin was amazing to meet. Really, really nice. I got to meet him, I think, the most because I also saw him at London Film and Comic Con, and also at there was another one that I went to. It was MCM. Very Scarborough Comic Con was
Scarborough, yeah.
incredible, but beautiful. It's in the Scarborough Spa. Like it was this huge, like beautiful, like castle-like architecture right by the seaside. It was the most surreal thing to see, like a Fourth Doctor cosplayer and like the full coat and scarf, like on the beach at the seaside, and like a Mandalorian cosplay as well, like just
Mm.
walking towards you, and all these Doctor Who fans on the beach. I was like, it's this beautiful, beautiful day, and it was so ironic that we spent it all inside waiting in line to like get autographs from these doctors. But they had four doctors there. They had Peter Davison, Colin Baker, Sylvester McCoy, Paul McGann, and I
Mm.
got to meet them all that day as well, which was amazing. They also had Sarah Sutton, they had Janet Fielding, they had Sonny McGann, they had Nicola Bryant and Sophie Aldred, and so it was incredible to be able to meet that many people and go to like an all
Mm.
Doctor Who convention. Those are few and far between here in the U.S. And obviously, famously, we have Gallifrey
I was
One,
going to
but
ask
that's
that, yeah.
farther away from me in the U.S. than all of the conventions in the UK
I
are.
suppose, yeah. I was, yeah, because with the time difference, not the time difference, with the sort of scale of things, you can't just hop to the
Yeah.
next state very easily.
Oh no, I mean, I
Especially if you don't
wish I
drive.
could. Yeah, right,
Yeah,
exactly.
no.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, so I don't really want to spoil your vlog coming up. So do you want to just give me one of the best moments that you've had during the three week trip that you had here
Yeah.
in the UK?
I mean, it was there were so many, and it's hard to pick, but I think that you know there. I mean, the whole time I was so lucky with I lucked out with the weather. I was told bring umbrellas. It's going to be raining all the time, and the whole time I was there, except for maybe like the last couple of days, it was very, very little rain. And it was even sunny the day that I went to Wales. To Wales, it was sunny in Wales. Like I
Sunny in
lucked out
Wales.
so much on
Mm.
the trip. It felt like there were so many things that went right, and I had so many friends and just people looking out for me and making sure that I was where I needed to be and knew how I needed to get there. And I credit the success of that so much to them, and then of course my family answering all of my panicked texts about how do I find my next flight, or am I in the right place, or where how do I get to here, and I just had such a network of support and a lot of great suggestions from people online about where to go, what to do. But one of my favorite moments actually was at Scarborough Comic Con because I met the most um, doctors and actors that day. Getting to meet, I had met Colin Baker the week before, so it was wild to be one of those people who's met multiple doctors at multiple conventions. Before my trip, I'd met Sylvester McCoy, and that was it as far as
Yeah.
Doctor Who actors. Forget non-Doctor Doctor Who actors, which there's thousands, but like nobody that that's the only person who's ever worked on Doctor Who that I'd ever met, and that was in 2016. And so at Scarborough Comic Con, I got to meet him again 7 years down the line, and at London Film and Comic Con, I get to meet him again, and I get a picture with him and Sophie Aldred in costume. And I had him hold up. There was a picture that I have right here of me and my brother from when we met him in
Yeah.
2015, and at an American convention. And so I had him hold the picture up from that day. So it was a picture within a picture. And it was just the nicest sort of moment of, 7 years apart, but here's him holding a picture of, us meeting at a convention at another convention that we met. So that was a really special moment. And I at Scarborough Comic Con, it was amazing because I got to meet 4 doctors and like 4 companions that day. And I had a book. I got this book called Hootopia.
Yeah.
It was available at MCM Comic Con, and it was an early release. So it's out now, but it was out early then. And one of the 3 authors, Una McCormack, was there and was signing copies, like unofficially, unexpectedly.
Yeah.
And so I got to meet Una and get it signed. And then I have in this book, I took it everywhere else that I went and all the other conventions. So I have this now signed by 3 different doctors, multiple companions, multiple Doctor Who artists and actors as well. So that's a prized possession. But the day that I went to Scarborough, I think was really just so special because it was amazing to meet that many doctors and actors. But it was also incredible because the evening ended on, I was heading out, the con ended, and you're on the beach, and they were still putting up fireworks for Guy Fawkes Day, like
really? 5th of November.
5th of November, right? But like moving up to it's a funny holiday to be celebrating.
Yeah.
But I guess as an American, it kind of it shouldn't. It makes more sense to me. But
to be honest,
strange to see British people
every
celebrate
year
that.
we have no idea why we do it. It just seems to be this thing that we were taught about in school, and then some fireworks go off, and then you basically create a big fire in your back garden, or you go to the park and they have a big fire, and apparently that's all right, that's good,
right?
We just carry on.
So I found that like in the 5 days leading up to that holiday and the 5 days after, like fireworks were just going off every night. And so when I was in Scarborough, they were, there were fireworks, and just seeing them reflecting off of the beach. And I just had a moment where I was like, by myself on the beach, Doctor Who cosplayers walking by me, fireworks going off, and just having met 4 doctors in one day and just going, this is really happening to me. This is so cool. And there were so many other moments that were made special by like the friends and the people that I was with. But that particular moment of reflection was just really, it felt like something out of a movie. Yeah. Just to, the Disney fireworks go off at the end of every movie.
It's the end of the film.
So that was very special. And it was also the place that I got to stay was very nearby the location of the convention. So even though it was dark, I only had to walk about 10 minutes to my location. And you said that you didn't get mugged. It was fine.
You said that you used friends, and then you used sort of, when you had to, hotels. And
yes, definitely.
I don't know if you used a hostel at any point.
I didn't do a hostel only because a lot of times I was bringing around a suitcase of very precious merchandise with me that I wasn't sure how it would fit into like a hostel bed or setting, or if somebody would steal it or something. I don't know. So yeah, there was a lot of people that I'd known for years, and some people that I'd only known for like a year, who put me up in their homes, in their guest rooms, and made room for me at
Mm.
the very last minute, and went to pick me up at late hours of the night or wherever I'd arrived by train or whatever manner I came in. And um, it was just amazing to meet some people that I'd known on on YouTube for years, but like had never seen in person. And that was just so there was something so special about that. And as suspected, most of them were taller than I was. I think I knew that going. I was like, I think almost everybody's gonna be taller
Yeah.
than me, but some people were the same height, so that was fine. But
You know what
I have a
question I'm going
couple
to
of
ask
very
now?
tall UK friends. Yeah, I'm 5'7".
I'm 5'11". I'm a little bit taller than you.
See, yeah, there's just it
Not
was
that great.
something about like I think a lot of my friends are taller than I am
Yeah.
in the UK anyway, but you know
Yeah.
it must be something in the food. Maybe it's and
Yeah, yeah.
it's all those full English breakfasts. I was I was
my
joking with
my
a friend. I
granddad
was like,
used to
"Will I
say
be fully English if I eat this?" Like,
haggis, and if you go into Scotland, and bacon. Oh, bacon. Egg. Oh,
mm.
sorry, it's food. I didn't have dinner. I
Oh
was
yeah.
gonna say, my granddad used to say that going to a family event with us lot was like Planet of the Giants. He wasn't making a Doctor Who reference. He was just talking about the size of my cousins, because I am short compared to them. They're about
What?
six
Oh
foot
my gosh.
four. They're in their
Whoa.
30s though. I'm 10 years younger than them, or
Wow.
15
Wow.
actually. So
Hmm.
I've got a bit of growing left to do, I think.
Yes.
But no, I mean, I'm sort of envious that you did do such a huge trip,
Hmm.
and sort of pulled it off. Where you must have been a little bit frightened of where you were going next, but I suppose that was also part of the fun of what was going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very interesting experience because I was trying to put out feelers on, Twitter and my community tab and stuff to say like, you know, uh, and it was that thing of when you're on YouTube, you don't need to know where everybody lives because you're connected, online by social media and stuff. So I'd often have like,
Mm.
a 2 hour conversation with somebody about Doctor Who, and then I'd get off the phone and my parents would be like, oh, so like they just ask questions that were natural to them, like, what's their last name? And I'm like, I don't know. I just know their username.
Is it
And oh, where do
guide?
they live? And I'm like, it never came up. Like
Yeah, yeah,
where they live never came up in the
yeah.
conversation. But now I was like, where do you all live? Because I'm half planning this trip based on events.
Mm,
But if there's a spot where it overlaps between an event and somebody that I know and somebody who I know who is able to put me up for a night, like that's where I'll go. And so it was very last minute planning, but I found a lot of people were saying, well, no, you tell me where you are and I'll go to you. And I was like, that's very nice, but I'm planning my trip the other way around of like, where do I know people? So where can I go to stuff? And then, there was so many different places that I went, but it was very much based around like, okay, this con is happening at this day, so what can I do in that area? And
right, yeah.
or this person I know is going to be able to put me up for a couple of nights, so I'll go to where they are and see what things happen there. So moving forward, I am planning a new trip to the UK. Obviously, once I pay this one off. So but like I definitely want to go back, and there's still more
Mm,
things I want to do. I've
mm.
never been to a BFI screening. I want to do that. I
I
did
think
go to B&M's.
trying to get a
B&M's.
BFI screening is very
Oh
very
yeah, right.
tricky.
The tickets
Even
go
if you're
so
here,
quickly,
but
but
a
there's still so much
B&M,
to
that's
to
good.
do and see. So I would love to go back as
Mm,
well. But if I did it again, I would definitely plan ahead more.
mm.
Last minute hotel prices really do get you. Trying to book
I'm
those last
surprised
minute.
you did. I thought you would plan it out a lot more than you apparently have done, because I thought you'd
Yeah,
have like, I'm staying 3 nights in this area, 3 nights in here, but you really did not know where you were going next. Some days, did you?
yeah. I'd say about half the trip I knew that I was staying with a friend in a certain
Mm,
area. The rest was trying to make it up because there were plans that kind of fell through at the last minute too. Um, and so, but it was all planned very, very last minute. So it was a lot of times part of the day would be figuring out where could I stay next. For instance, I know, this was part of the frustrating thing. It's like, okay, I know there's like I have 4,000 subscribers on YouTube. I know that some of them must be in London, and some of them would probably have been willing to put me up, but we just didn't connect on my Twitter feed or my community tab, or they didn't see the video that I made of I'm going to the UK or something. So like that was a spot where I was like, seriously? No, but I don't know anybody in London apparently. Well, I do, but like we didn't
Yeah,
cross paths, and there wasn't enough prior planning. So I ended up having to get hotel rooms while I was in London, but you know, or I suppose they were that wasn't so much hotels, just they had modified previous buildings that were previously houses that had multiple levels, and I stayed in a basement level floor and stuff
like
and on the
like a
street.
like not a house share, like a B, not a B and B, like you rent a house for a week kind of thing. Whatever the
Kind
word
of,
is.
yeah, but
I'm
it was
literally
it was a
doing one next
floor.
week.
It was a floor of a house
Yeah.
of like so that was it was all very nice. But I did try the English cuisine as much as that is a
Cuisine,
thing.
right?
the
What is
thing about
classed as the
the
English
thing about
cuisine?
food in England is
Yeah.
there's a lot of great food in England, but a lot of it's French. Like a lot of the best food
We
is
stole
from
it from
other
someone else.
cultures and other
Yeah,
cuisines, and it's the
yeah.
same thing in America. In America, it's like, oh, let's go to this great Indian restaurant
Mm.
down the road, or let's go get some Chinese or whatever. Like it's all different cultures, and
I mean,
you know, McDonald's is American cuisine, I guess. But like in the UK, I did try like a full English breakfast. I tried various jelly beans. I tried authentic uh, fish fingers and custard.
right. You
Proper.
do realize you didn't actually eat the fish fingers and custard. They were like fruitcake or something, weren't they?
I did I tried that, and I had
Fish and chips.
fish and chips.
Yeah.
I had fish and chips. So I tried to like
I like how you
get
said
as
that
much of those.
with my turn of phrase. Fish and
Yeah,
chips
yeah.
in the same way. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very fun, and I did have tea while I was there. I'm not a huge tea person, but I was like, I've got to. I'm in the UK. I've got to have
Mm.
tea.
Depends where you go though. That's the see. It's like the fish and chips thing. If you're further up north, gravy. They put gravy on their chips. Cheese on your chips. That's something that happens like sort of not down south, but from where I am all the way
Hmm.
up. And then you get sort of looked at funny if my auntie and uncle have lived down south for such a long time that they came up a couple of years ago for my birthday, and on the menu it said curry. You can have rice, chips, or half and half. Now the half and half thing, this was the pub I worked at. That was for my dad because my dad kept having curry half and half with chips and rice, and my auntie, who'd always been a southerner and never stayed up here, sort of went, you can't do that. You can't have both. You can't have chips with a curry, and it completely blew him out. It's like you said, there's a lot of different cultures, there's a lot of variations of things, and
Hmm.
depending on where you go. And like you say, if you have a
Yeah.
tea in one area, the tea's going to be different somewhere else, like like
Right.
Yorkshire tea, and things like that.
Right. Right.
So, have you got any idea about when that video may be finished, or is it just sort of whenever you get around to it at the minute?
Yeah. Well, I've been editing it like in every spare moment possible. So the thing is, it's like 21 days of footage, to edit all together. And so
Yeah.
there's hours and hours of footage to go through. And so I'm editing it as fast as I can, but it's like, it's going to be like editing a full-on movie. It's the biggest project I've ever undertaken, and I want to make sure that I'm doing it well. And so I'm hoping that I think I'm definitely going to spend the rest of this month editing it, and so we'll see. I don't want to make promises I can't keep,
No,
but
don't do
I'm
that. Yeah.
hoping that either in April or May. I can't see it taking longer than that, because I've been trying to. I worked in January and February. It was all about catching up on the work I'd missed out in during my trip and over the holidays, and then I got ahead, so I've got all of my videos on the channel scheduled out through till mid-April. And so it was all about like editing enough videos that I could clear my weekly editing time
Mm.
for working on the vlog and recapturing all of that information and stuff. So yeah, it's gonna be amazing when it comes out. I'm so excited. I'm already like
Mm.
there's things that I've edited that I'm like, just it's a good sign when you watch something you've just edited and you're like smiling and you want to watch it over and over and over again. And so it is, to be able to film something like this has been, beyond my wildest dreams for a long time. So it's very, very fun to finally, be working on it and,
Mm.
putting in 5-6 hours at a time, to edit this as much as I can each day. So that was, I'm
Brilliant.
working on it. I wish I could
Yeah.
say when it's
Slow,
going to be done,
slow,
because
slow
I've never
progress.
edited something
It's
like
worth the
this.
wait.
And at the beginning, it's always going to take longer because you're getting your routines in place and
Yeah.
deciding what the format is and how you're going to tell the story. And just because this vlog happened in a linear way, am I going to tell the story in a linear fashion? It's, I've got to write it as well.
With all that footage, you can do an awful lot of different things. You could start off at one point and say, you could really make a full movie essentially out of all of that stuff. I mean, I'm surprised
Right?
you had enough room on your SD card for it, to be honest.
Oh, I know. It's like, I think there's 2,900 photos and
Mm,
video clips that I had from the trip. Like
incredible.
2,900.
Yeah, I look forward to that video whenever it may come out. I'm sure you'll
Yes.
do a smashing job of
As
it.
soon as possible.
So there's nothing else left to say. They are my questions completed. I want to say thank you very much for joining me today. It's been great
Thank
to
you for
talk to you
having
again.
me.
It's been great to have you back. I hopefully will have you back before 3 years have
Yeah.
passed next
Hopefully
time.
sooner than that. Definitely, definitely. Maybe once the vlog has come out, we
Mm,
can talk about it. And
yeah,
because
maybe.
that'll be the whole trip. I
Uh,
filmed
uh,
like everything.
I feel like we could do another podcast just talking about the trip.
Yes, yes.
Definitely. I find there's a bit of irony as I look over towards my other screen that says that I have an hour and 58 minutes of recorded footage currently, um,
Yeah.
which means that when I said earlier that I've been saying to myself, I want to short a podcast, I want to streamline everything, I've done exactly what I did last time, because we're at 1 hour 59 now. But I want to say thank you
Some
very
things don't
much.
change.
Some things really don't. You come into these old habits, you get the same people talking to you as you were before, and you get off, on a tangent and the various things like that. But to everyone at home, I'd like to say thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you did enjoy the
Yes.
video slash podcast.
Thank
If you
you.
did, make sure you give it a like, subscribe. If you are new, you can check out the podcast on various different platforms. And we have a new platform as well. We're now on Amazon. I don't know how, but I tried to submit it
What?
the other day and it worked. And it doesn't normally work.
Hey.
They were like, yeah, you're in. You're now going to appear on Amazon, which is great. So
Nice.
thank you very much for watching. Thank you, Alex, for being here today,
Thank you
and
for having me.
we shall see you soon. Goodbye.
Bye.